Science as a discipline thrives upon the pillars of experimentation, verification, and reproduction. Using the scientific method, researchers publish scientific papers that detail their studies and findings in scholarly journals. And these papers are peer-reviewed before being published.
However, in recent decades, it has come to light that a significant percentage of published studies in both the physical and social sciences are not reproducible, leading to an increasing concern that modern research, false findings may be the majority or even the vast majority of research claims. In other words, many published studies, even in the most prestigious research journals, do not have reproducible results, either due to not providing enough information to reperform the experiment, or due to that replications of the studies produce weaker evidence than the original findings.
We are Kester, Nucum, Renie, Morrow, and Brugere, and today we will be discussing this scientific controversy known as the Replication Crisis.
Fueled by questionable research practices and situations where confirmation bias and publication bias influence the findings of the study, a series of replication attempts in the early to mid-2010s termed the controversy the Replication Crisis, because less than 50% of the repeated studies gave the original solutions. This made researchers and behavioral scientists wonder how many social experiments were deceiving the public and future research with false positives. Although the controversy originated in the field of psychology, other social sciences such as economics, sociology, medicine, and any practice that uses scientific method have since faced similar questions about research methods and the reliability of previous discoveries.
Has the crisis been overblown by media coverage? The media is one reason for the spread of misinformation by reporting non-replicable research papers because of their appealing findings.
From a behavioral economic standpoint, most reactions and corrections are initially over-exaggerated by the media, cultivating a new level of fear and doubt in the scientific community, especially in social sciences like psychology. According to Lucio Buffalomano, in his article Replication Crisis, A Defense of Psychology, many of the articles in the media are promoting a knee-jerk reaction, throwing out ideas such as, much of what you know about psychology may be a lie, creating doubt for the psychological phenomena that is not even in question or related to the studies that lack reproducibility. Joint action is required from the scientific community to reduce the fear and distrust growing among the public. But that is only possible if scientists can agree upon what the bottleneck of the problem is, addressing error in research methods, and how to systematically approach replication studies.
As we discussed this debate, we labeled the two sides as the alarmists and the optimists. Alarmists, those in favor of using the term crisis, describe sciences as inherently subjective and believe the unique methodology of the research causes issues with replicating statistical results. The research article estimating the reproducibility of psychological science provided by science.org found that of 100 experimental and correlational studies published in psychology journals, only 39% were concluded to have successfully replicated the original findings. The findings reveal that the common denominator of irreproducible studies is often the faults of the researcher, whether that be personal biases, environmental influences, or simple conceptual distinctions from the original study. It is alarming how difficult it is to replicate a study, even under the supposedly the most identical of conditions. The recognition of a crisis is beneficial to future research practices, especially regarding statistical methods. However, for over a decade, no clear decisions have been made about how to systematically attack the root issue, how experiments can be directly replicated without conceptualization, and how experimental methods and statistical analysis should be standardized for direct replication attempts. Reason for delay could be the lack of consensus on the degree of the issue.
Optimists, or those against the term crisis, have more of a polar mindset of the controversy. Replication crises do not necessarily reduce the controversy's merit.
And many scientists believe the replication crisis is blown out of proportion because the idea of exactly replicating an experiment with complete objectivity is basically impossible.
However, it is important to note that a single failure to replicate should not invalidate a paper. The optimists embrace these reproducibility issues instead as new opportunities and challenges, or even a revolution that strengthens rather than undermines the scientific method.
For both alarmists and optimists to reach a consensus on the replication crisis stasis, or finding a central issue, must be determined. The question of fact indicates there is a failure to replicate a large fraction of published experiments. The question of definition of this issue is debated on whether it can and should be called a crisis.
The components of this issue are agreed upon, including difficulties in reproducing experiments, lack of sufficient details in method sections, pressure to publish and selective reporting towards new findings and positive results/replications, and no standard method of reproducibility.
Both parties also share the same views on this phenomenon's quality and policy, affirming that the lack of reproducibility in scientific publications is a serious issue that needs to be addressed. To do so, both sides call for a rethinking that would challenge the current incentivization culture of academia, improve scientists' intuitions about statistical inference, and encourage transparency in replication studies, as well as identify and eliminate more biases.
Regardless of how optimists or alarmists view this crisis or this revolution, both groups should realize that they are advocating for the same goal: to challenge their fellow scientists to strengthen each step of the research publication process, both systematically and individually, to promote a credible, ethical, and truth-filled science.